If you're non-technical, you don't want to code, and you feel confused about what to do career-wise, that was me about a year ago. And I pivoted from studying political science, working on political campaigns, and working on a nonprofit, and now I work in tech sales. Here's what I did to make that jump, and here's what you can do right now to make that jump as well. I studied political science in school because I genuinely liked understanding conflict, how decisions are made, and really understand how people are. Especially working on political campaigns, you have to interact with a lot of constituents, and just learning about how to talk to those people, how to convince those people to vote for a certain candidate. And it taught me a lot about communication, persuasion, how to read people, and public speaking, networking, and whatnot. But it didn't teach me how to make actual money. And you know you graduate college, you get the degree that you want, you think that you're happy. In reality, I didn't realize how much money I was gonna make. I was barely making anything. When I finished up my master's, I started working at a nonprofit. And at that nonprofit, I was so excited to start. And the main goal and the main thing that really drove me was, I get to help people. But slowly I started realizing that helping people wasn't gonna make me any money. And as much as the work was good, and I do agree the work was good, I did learn a lot from it, but I got hired at my ceiling, meaning that there was no way for me to move about in the organization. The organization was good. It was just when you're capped out, you can do as much work as you want, you're not gonna get paid more. And my focus was on long-term stability, right? As working at a nonprofit is fun, it's nice, but the growth ceiling was so low unless you commit about a decade of your life into that industry or that particular organization. And the nonprofit world teaches you mission, but the tech world teaches you leverage. So about in July last year, I started wondering, I really sat down with myself and I thought to myself, what do I actually like to do? What really interests me, and what skills are gonna pay me? What career won't require me to code? I've taken a coding class. I hated it. It was very tedious. It was very annoying. And what job rewards communication, good communication with people? And that's how I discovered tech sales. Tech sales basically means you sell software, SaaS, which is software as a service. It just means companies pay monthly or yearly, like a subscription, instead of buying the software just once. And it sounds intimidating. It sounds like an intimidating field when you realize it's just persuasion, outreach, communication, curiosity, and resilience. These 5 things are the recipe to success in tech sales. So in tech sales, there are a few common roles and acronyms. So I'm going to break this down really clearly for you guys. An SDR, which is a sales development rep, which is entry level. You're the opener. You prospect and you book meetings. A business development rep, or a BDR, which is basically the same thing, just under a different name. AE, which is an account executive. They basically run sales calls and close the deals. So SDRs hand off prospects to the AEs, or the account executives, and they're the ones who get these deals done. SMB, which is small to mid-sized businesses, smaller deals, faster cycles, and above that is enterprise. When you sell enterprise, you're selling to big organizations, big companies. The sales cycles are longer, and the amount of revenue that gets brought in is much bigger. We went over SaaS, software as a service. ICP, which is the ideal customer profile, which is basically who the prospects are, who the company sells to. And SQL, which is sales qualified lead, which is, are these prospects worth talking to? So tech sales really rewards skills that a lot of people already have. Communication, persuasion skills, researching, writing, listening, building relationships, and handling rejection. If you come from, like me, a political science background, or a nonprofit, humanities, or even like an immigrant household, or even retail customer service, you're more prepared than you think. The biggest key when looking for a role in tech sales isn't being technical. It's about selling yourself to be the best candidate that they could hire. You could say that for any job, but in tech sales, this is really important because this starts before the interview. For me, I treated my job search like it was outbound research. I reached out to sales reps on LinkedIn from different companies, asked about their culture, and asked what they look for in SDRs and how I positioned my background to fit around that role. And that alone puts you ahead of a lot of applicants. And one of the biggest things I did, and this is a tip that I will give for a lot of people that are looking to break into tech sales, not coming from a tech or even like a sales or marketing background, is, really do your research on the companies that you want to work for. Don't blind apply. And when you blind apply, you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, and you can't put your focus on one thing that you want. What I did was I focused on 4 companies. So currently I'm in hospitality and hospitality software, fintech, and I work for a point of sale company. So what I did was look for different companies that are within that scale, point of sale. So there are a couple of big companies I looked into, and what I did was, this might sound a little grimy, right? Focus on one company. Focus on one company that you want, right? Really do your research. Once you narrowed it down to 3, now narrow it down to 1. Once you narrow it down to 1, look at those other companies and hit up sales reps on LinkedIn that work at those companies, or account executives or sales managers. And people will tell you to network, but nobody tells you how to network, right? Nobody tells you how to network properly. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I've ever gotten in terms of networking was, people really thrive on validation, right? If you message somebody on LinkedIn and tell them, hey, my name is XYZ, I'm interested in X, nobody cares. Nobody cares about you, nobody cares what your name is. But when you start off the message with a hook like, hey, I noticed that you did work in XYZ and I'm really impressed by it, people love that validation and they're more inclined to open up your message and even respond. And in that message, you will write, hey, I'd love to sit down and, I'd really love to learn from you, for a quick chat. And in that chat, when you get that meeting with the different sales reps, apart from the company that you want to work for, really ask them deep questions. How do you get your clients? How do you talk to your clients? What are your sales methodologies? How do you go about prospecting? Who's a qualified lead? Who's not? Once you have the information and you get an interview with the company that you want to work for, you can tell them, I know what your competitors do, right? That sets you apart from literally everybody. This is an extra step that not a lot of people take. I took that extra step. I met with sales reps from different companies and I asked them questions, deep questions. And like I said, it all started from that first message that really got their attention and to show that I was really eager to learn. Yes, like I said, it sounds grimy, it sounds bad, but you gotta do what you gotta do in this job market. And this is what's going to help you. Now, if you want to take a step further and you really want to set yourself apart from every single candidate, I would say go out into really study who their customers are. First of all, study who their customers are, who are their clients, who do they prospect the most. And I want you to go to those businesses, go to those people, and I want you to sell the product for them for free. Before you work for the company, you're going to sell the product, or at least try to, right? And you're really going to practice. One, it's practice over how are you going to fare in that company. Are you going to do well? Are you able to understand their product? Are you able to sell their product to a customer? How good are your sales skills? One is practice for that. Two, nobody works for free. Nobody's going to say, hey, I sold your product for free, or I tried to sell your product for free. No candidate is going to say that. This alone is going to set you apart from everybody else. When I was in my interview and they asked me what sets you apart from other candidates, I told them, I already explained to them, I went out and tried to sell their product to other restaurants. It's a point of sale company. Their biggest clients are restaurants. I went to restaurants in my vicinity and I sold your product to them for free. And they're impressed by that. And just by that, I landed the job. That's one of the biggest reasons why I landed the job. It wasn't because of me having a technical background. I have zero technical background, but I really positioned myself to be, to really stand apart from whoever else was applying. I wasn't somebody random on LinkedIn who found the job and I was like, oh, I got the interview, cool. I was really interested in working for this company and I was going to do whatever it took for me to get that position. So on to the interviews. When you get the interview, tech sales interviews are not like academic interviews. They're sales conversations. You are the product. You are selling yourself to the company. They don't care about your GPA. They don't care about where you went to school. They don't care about what you studied. They care more about, can you talk? Can you listen? Can you handle objections? Can you think on your feet? Are you able to properly research prospects? And can you stay composed in the event of objection? If you want to win before the interview starts, you can win by knowing these 5 things: the company, the product, who they sell to, the pain points, and why you're a fit for the SDR role. And that stuff, along with what I said before, about how their competitors stay ahead of the competition, and that you've sold their product to potential customers, or you've tried to. That will really set you apart. That will show you that you're serious about this job. Being an SDR is about curiosity, resilience, and communication. I would say most companies do a cold call role play as a part of the interview, and a lot of people panic. I panicked too during my interview, and what I realized is it's not about perfection, it's about energy, curiosity, and your main goal is to book the meeting. So the simple cold call framework, I'm going to go about this really briefly. I'll make a longer video on how to ace that part of the interview. But a simple cold call framework is, your intro, you acknowledge that you interrupted that person's day. So it shows that you respect that person's time. Your curiosity questions, meaning you go into depth on what's working for their business, what's not working. And at the end, you have to book that meeting, right? And again, it's not about perfection. It's about how you go about it, and if they say yes, if they're okay with it, you book the meeting. If not, you ask why. If they object, you stay calm no matter what. If you want videos on breaking into a tech sales career with a non-technical background, any videos about cold messaging for referrals or how to go about a mock sales call, please let me know in the comments. I was confused when I was 22 on what to do with my life, and I would have killed for somebody to tell me the information that I know now. So more coming. In the video description, I also put down a playbook for how to get a career in tech sales. It's free to read. It's something that somebody had given me while I was networking. And if you would think it would be helpful, please give it a read.